Ariel Helwani in Las Vegas gearing up for UFC 132 alongside the stun gun Dong Young Kim, who faces Carlos Condit this Saturday night live on pay-per-view. And thank you for the time. We appreciate it. Obviously, this is a very big fight for you. Do you believe that if you beat Carlos, that you should be the number one contender in the 170-pound division?
정말 원하는데
I really want to fight GSP, but that's up to UFC, and I'm only concentrating on knocking out Carlos right now.
Carlos has talked about this fight a lot, and he thinks you want to go to the ground with him right away. You say that you want to knock him out. Is it safe to assume then that you want to actually keep this fight standing instead of trying to take it to the ground?
I don't know what Carlos is, thinking right now. I don't know what his strategy is, but if he's worrying about going to the ground, then I'll mix my hands with him.
Carlos is obviously one of the best welterweights in the world. He's only lost once in several years. Still doesn't really get a lot of recognition just yet, even though he was the WC champion. When you see his game, when you study him, what do you think are his biggest holes?
He thinks the opposite. Well, he thinks that Carlos is he thinks that he's overrated, and he has many fans. He has a lot of fans, but I don't think his skills as good as the number of fans he has. But he also thinks that he's fought a lot of fighters that will match up perfectly with Carlos. But he hasn't fought someone like him. He's a very strong fighter, and he thinks that Carlos hasn't fought fighters like Dong Hyun.
Why do you think he's overrated? Which part of his game do you think the general public overrates?
여태까지 지금 승이 굉장히 많은데
he has a lot of wins, but he's also fought. He's only fought
선수들하고 싸우기보다는 타격가들하고 싸우기 때문에 그런 승이 나왔기 때문에
stand-up guys.
그렇게 생각하고 있습니다.
He's never fought someone like GSP or someone like Dong Hyun Kim, whose style is very very tough and strong on the ground, or strong grapplers, someone like that.
When people talk about the best fighters at 170 in the UFC, do you feel as though enough people talk about you? Do you feel as though you get the respect that you deserve?
Well, he thinks that he's a very strong fighter, and every time he comes to the States, he gets no spotlight, and he feels that he gets no respect. But he thinks that he's the one who can beat GSP, and he should deserve better respect.
And just curious, GSP's next fight is against Nick Diaz, who was the Strikeforce welterweight champion. He hasn't fought in the UFC in several years. Do you think, for lack of a better word, that it was fair that a guy who was a champion in another organization gets a shot at GSP right off the bat?
일단 공정하지 않지만 실력적으로는 공정하지 않지만
no, he doesn't think it's fair, but as a fan himself, he likes Nick Diaz. But he also thinks that like if he fights Nick right now, he's very confident that he can beat Nick Diaz.
In your last fight, you came out to the Pride theme song, even though you've never fought in Pride before. Will you be doing the same on Saturday night?
I can answer that for him. Yes. There is a behind story actually to it. Yeah. Yes, we'll come out with the Pride song. And no, we haven't fought in Pride, but he did sign with Pride actually, and. I think it was the day after, right? 동인이 형, 프라이드랑 그 계약한 다음에 다음 날 없어진 거죠?
계약한 다음에 경기 앞두고 있었는데 프라이드가 없어졌지.
Oh yeah. He signed with the Pride, and he was ready to fight somebody, but then Pride was sold out, sold to UFC.
So even though you never fought in Pride, why do you feel the need to sort of pay homage to the organization? Because other than the fact that you signed with them, you have no real link to them as far as the history books are concerned.
The reason he became a fighter is because of Pride. Watching Pride, growing up and watching Pride, that's what made him want to be a fighter. And like I said, he signed with Pride and all that, and he kind of felt that he was really close to accomplish his dream, but Pride was gone, so he was really disappointed. But every time he listens to that Pride theme song, it makes him feel like he's becoming a warrior. He feels that he's a warrior type of person. So it really pumps him up. Yeah.
All right, final question. We hear about the UFC's global expansion a lot. They want to go to India, the Philippines, Japan at some point, but we don't hear much about Korea. What is the state of MMA in Korea? And do you think that there is a point that the UFC can go to Korea? And we hear that it's popular there, but we just don't hear them talking about going to that market a lot. So do you think that if the UFC did go to Korea, that that it would be the big game in town, and that a lot of people would go to the events and support it?
He basically said that's one of his big dreams that the UFC will be in Korea, and he thinks that a lot of fans are gonna go watch the fights because historically Korea's been doing really well on sports like judo or boxing, taekwondo, those fighting those kind of sports, and there are a lot of MMA fans, but they're just not exposed to sports, like UFC or Strikeforce. But if they come to Korea, he thinks that a lot of fans are gonna go watch, and it's gonna be crazy. He thinks.
Thank you for the time. Good luck on Saturday night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.